Hey everyone, it's Owen here from Urbane Cyclist. Today we're talking Ortlieb once again. So we've done a whole bunch of videos on Ortlieb, and unsurprisingly we've got a whole bunch of questions and comments on a whole bunch of these videos. So we thought it might be nice to kind of get in front of the camera again and talk a little bit about some updates we've talked about in the past that have now come to market, and also some kind of little intricate answers we've already answered in the comment section but should kind of bring a little more attention to. So, of course, before we get started, if you have other questions that aren't answered in this video, feel free to put them in the comments. We always love answering your questions. And today we're gonna have a look at mainly just YouTube comments. So let's get started.
Our first comment is, one thing I'd love to see Ortlieb improve about the back rollers is the thin shoulder straps applied with the panniers. Makes them uncomfortable to carry when they're off the bike, especially when you've got some weight in them.
So that's a fair question, or comment I should say in this case. So here's a back roller classic, and this is what they're referring to, this kind of little auxiliary strap. It has a very basic, lightweight kind of, padding would be a bit of an overstatement here. But what I would like to point out is in classic Ortlieb style, they have optional accessories to kind of augment and improve your experience. So if you are the type of person that actually is actively on and off the bike quite regularly, they have an accessory for that, which is just this lovely, heavier duty strap that you can easily put over top for a little added comfort. So they've got you covered. You've already had this completely resolved by a secondary add-on from Ortlieb. Of course, there's other companies that make these too. This is a fairly straightforward strap, and of course it disconnects. So this one is designed to be able to be looped around, but even just a tube that can be slid on should work just fine as well.
All right, so our next question is, have you figured out some ways to lock the bag or a theft deterrent when keeping the bag on the bicycle? I'm thinking of some kind of hardened steel bolt and then a hole in the hardware attachment bolts and nuts. And also using a Loctite on the bolt and perhaps a cable lock through and perhaps with a liquid metal to prevent the bolt. And also painted both sides with a layer of rubberized black paint to give it a nice stealth finish.
So I think this is actually a fascinating question. I love the kind of air of ingenuity you can tell. There's someone's really got the gears turning. Once again, Ortlieb does have you covered. So if we flip this around, so just to familiarize ourselves a little bit, we have this nice little rail system here. If you notice, this can be bolted on or off, and this has been a long-standing accessory. It's called the cable lock. It's quite thin. This is not designed to be a heavy-duty solution, but you'll notice it has this kind of brass anchor and a loop end, right? So what's great about that loop end is theoretically, if you wanted, you can loop through a piece of the bicycle, if you wanted to go to like your seat rail, your seat post, maybe just the actual rack itself. This is more in line with what we'd see for like a cafe lock, right? So the way this works is you're gonna have, this is either a flathead or a Torx, just as kind of normal with all these Ortlieb rail systems. And you see this little channel. What you're gonna do is feed the loop from the inside out, and then that little brass anchor gets anchored inside. So it's very simple, quite minimal, and when you're not using it, you can actually kind of slot it in there. There's actually a new security feature that they've added just recently, which we're just gonna take a quick look at. So I don't know if this has a formal name. They just call this QL2 lock. So what that looks like is this. This is a very simple little add-on. We're gonna try to demonstrate it a little today. So of course, beautiful little explainer for how to install it, which we can look at a little more closely later if we like. But what this effectively is, so normally with the QL2, you can flip this open, you can slide it along, right? So you can choose where it fits best and you can lock it down. These, of course, they have those shim receivers. We're used to seeing that. This functions in a very similar way, but the big difference is this actually locks down. So this maxes out at 16 millimeters. So it's the max size. You don't shim this, you just shim your regular pieces here. So you're gonna slot this on in the middle. So usually with these newer bags that have the stiff add-on, you gotta kind of push this in, make sure it's out of the way. So this gets installed into the bag in an interesting way. So this needs to get pressed down and locks in, right? So there, it's pushed in, and hear that clip, firm push to make sure that clips down. So the way this works here is you have this rail, and you have, just like the QL2 hook, so you can see that drop down. So as I push this down, right? So we push it down and lock it down. So now this actually has a locked piece. So if this was on a rack, this is now locked on, and even if you pull this off, it's not gonna do anything. It's actually designed in a way it's also quite difficult to get off. So a reminder, this is kind of the cafe style lock. This locks the bag onto the bike, it doesn't lock the bag closed. So to open here, let's just show here, really easy. Put the key in, pop it open, it's open. But that little press we did, you actually have to use the key to press in from the top. Let's see if we can get this on camera. Just a little firm push, unclips it, nice and easy. You get 2 keys with that, which is great. You're gonna open this and just again, arc this out of the way and then slide it along to remove it. You can see it's really quick and easy. This is a very sleek, simple add-on. And of course, you can still use the bag as normal and not touch this, and it's not locked on. And when you wanna lock it, you can lock it on. So I think it's a really kind of clever, interesting way. And of course, this is designed also to integrate with that cable lock if you wanna double up the security and just have something a little extra to make sure your bags are locked on.
All right, next question. Reminds me of this video from Path Less Pedaled.
Well, I'm an American, so I'm going to say Pannier.
Pannier. Pannier?
Pannier.
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 So yes, this video has been a bit of a thorn in my side. I remember being mildly infuriated when this first came out because here in Canada, we do understand, and many of us do speak French, we take it in school, so we don't say pannier, we say pannier. I don't really think that's up for debate, but apparently some English professor from America thinks otherwise.
Really great vid. Is there a way to mount these on my Tern cargo bike rack? It has unusually thick tubes.
So that's a great question. So as we covered in our original Ortlieb video, all about their bike bags, these rails at their maximum without shims are going to fit 16 millimeters. We actually did a couple sample measurements with a caliper to measure the outer diameter of a number of the Tern cargo racks from the GSDs. A lot of them do measure just a little over 16. That's largely due to probably powder coating. So that's a little excess, but the good news is these have just enough flex in them that these should fit snugly without any modification. Now that being said, there's also an additional kit here that fits for 20 millimeter rails. So as long as you have round rails or something less than 20 millimeters, the 20 millimeter upgrade is basically just like we were talking before. You slide these off, pop them off in the middle, and you just basically buy that add-on kit, put it on in its place. The one thing I will point out is there are no shims available for that system, so it may rattle a little bit more than a traditional system. The QL1 with the correct shim, or perhaps the QL 2.2. So the QL 2.2, as we know, is a little more adjustable, which we've covered in another video. We'll take a quick look here, just I have this handy. So for this QL 2.2 system, it's literally just a little quick release and you can slide it up and slide it down. Technically, again, this does maximum size all the way out is technically 16 millimeters and all the way in is, I believe, 10, but you know, I believe it's a little like a snug 10, not a true 10 perhaps. But this should fit just the same. The one thing I did notice is something like a GSD, they do have rails relatively close together, and this is a slightly bulkier shape. So depending on what type of accessories you have on that bike, it might actually be a little harder to fit this in. I did test fit on both the V2 GSD as well as the V3 that just came out, and both of these worked fine. So definitely possible, should be fine on a Tern cargo rack, but even if it isn't, you do have an upgrade available.
Any thoughts on the Vario?
So that's a fantastic question. In our big Ortlieb deep dive, we covered a lot focused around these lovely back rollers and a lot of their siblings. And we didn't actually get a chance to touch on the Vario, and the Vario is a really cool bag. So this is honestly what I would often describe as a fallacy. In all the years I've been working in bike shops, people always say, hey, I want a pannier and a backpack in one. And I was like, wow, pannier backpack in one. And I remember one of the first panniers I owned was a pannier backpack. And I remember being incredibly frustrated by it because it was such a slow transition to actually switch it from pannier to backpack. It actually took longer than locking up my bike, and all my friends would be down the block by the time I'm finally switched to backpack mode and trying to run along to catch up. What's really cool is they've redesigned this to be super quick and easy. So very few moving parts, so you have this lovely, nice, padded back. And the way this actually opens, no moving parts, it's just a nice little metal hook here. And if I reach over, pull it out, and do the opposite, It covers your backpack. And let me just tuck this in a little better. And then here we have, this is the latest version, which is the QL 2.2 version. We do have, I believe, a couple maybe of the 2.1 version. Again, nice, highly adjustable, fantastic hardware from Ortlieb we've know and love. But of course you have the fantastic, comfortable backpack as well. What's great about this, still waterproof, kind of has all the kind of great features, seam sealed, everything you could possibly want effectively. It's a great bag. I love this. To be honest, it's just, I believe that other video is over 30 minutes, and this is one of those bags I could go on and on about, so I chose to omit it just to try to keep it a little more streamlined and simple, but honestly, worth its own video, but it's really best seen in person in store, so if you're in the Toronto area, you should come check it out yourself.
That was my staff pick.
Staff pick, that's a good staff pick for sure.
Next question is more of a comment. PVC-free, ridiculous.
I did find this a little funny, this comment. So if you didn't know, a number of the models that Ortlieb makes and the series and the materials are PVC-free. Some have PVC. So I personally like the fact that they're just kind of making stuff for everyone. They're not choosing one or the other. It's kind of like, to me, it's like, hey, some people drink milk, some people drink like other variants of like non-animal based milk. It's like if the same company tried to supply something to all the customers that can't drink one or don't want to drink one, why not have both options, you know? They kind of do everything, they do everything well, they have all the great hardware, they make it very consistent, they're very clear about it too. It's like PVC free right on it. So what's not to love about that?
Another one that's a little more of a comment. I'm more of a fan of frame bags. This is from the Sling video.
Ah, yes, let's pull up the Sling video. Here we are, the lovely little sling bag, the Velo Sling, I believe we call this.
Correct.
So more of a fan of frame bags, and I believe we had a response. Do you want to read the response as well?
Frame bags are great. This is a convertible sling bag and handlebar bag, so it's not a frame bag, but you can have a frame bag and this bag if you really want. Or you can keep enjoying your frame bag.
I like turtles.
I like turtles.
Another comment on the Velo Sling. It'll block your front reflector and possibly light, which are legal requirements for riding in the UK.
Which is a fantastic point. First point, we're not in the UK, we're in Canada, so not a huge problem for us, but there are solutions. So I think it is a good point. A lot of these types of bar type bags that may fit on your handlebars could inhibit visibility for something in the front end. There are numerous accessory mounts that can add a taller bar that may be off of the stem or the bars themselves. Some people run those upside down to go low. I have a couple small examples. Here's a really nice stem mount light adapter from Paul. Beautifully machined little piece of aluminum. So this acts just like your top cap would and basically just gives you a taller position to add your light. So in theory, if you're running this, this can be behind so your light can kind of peek out over and above without inhibiting, you know, your visibility at night. Another old school one, which I would like, they actually call this a lamp holder. This is made by Nido in Japan. This is effectively just a large, basically nut for your quick release. So the non-cam, like the lever style part of the quick release, this is basically just the opposite side of that. So that basically just creates a nice little knurled, solid aluminum piece that you can again mount a light right low, right near your axle that can still keep a little visibility. In all honesty, I don't love how low this rides, but that being said, it's a great auxiliary or secondary light mount because it keeps everything out of the way. This won't be impeded by something down on your axle, but my point is there's lots of options.
These next comments come from our video on the Ortlieb Ultimate Bags. Would you know if the KlickFix 2.5 liter bag will fit on the standard Ortlieb handlebar mount?
So this was actually a fantastic question. We talked about this quite at length. So the Ortlieb Ultimate mounts clip on to their Ultimate bags, obviously. We have some third-party but licensed KlickFix mounts. They're made by Tern. We don't actually have a distribution for KlickFix here in Canada as far as I'm aware. I looked for it, I couldn't find one. But what's cool about this is this actually works. And I believe originally Ortlieb was also licensing KlickFix, so that works this way. And we actually asked this person in our comment section to report back if it works. And what they had is they had a Ortlieb mount, similar to this. This is the e-bike version. It's a little wider. So they had one of these and they had an Ultimate bag, but they were wondering if they could run a smaller KlickFix bag from KlickFix on the Ortlieb mount. So that cross-compatible nature, but just run in reverse than what we demonstrated. And they confirmed it totally worked. So they have the benefit of having a nice larger bag when they want to do like a larger day trip or maybe go on tour, and they have a smaller 2.5 liter bag from KlickFix, still working with their same mount from Ortlieb.
All right, this is going to be our last comment for this round of comment replies. Thanks, this is a very informative review of the bags. I was hoping to see a demonstration of how to install the mount. The Ortlieb instruction sheet is not very clear to me, and a mounting installation video would be very helpful.
So that was a great comment, and in all honesty, we talked about this a bit, and we are hoping to still create a video for that. So I want to kind of talk a little more transparently about what we're doing here. So I think a lot of people find us nationally, internationally, you know, across the ocean. We have viewers all over the world, and people don't realize that we're actually based out of a bike shop. Urbane Cyclist is the name of our bike shop. This is now our 28th year in business, and we make lots of content often to support sales. So we want to make sure you have a great experience buying from us. So we want to showcase things like Ortlieb because we've been selling these for like decades at this point, and it's just sometimes there's not enough resources. So something like an installation video for this little cable system that has to arc around your bag. So this is inventory that we actually have for sale. And what's kind of unfortunate is the nature of this is this would require me to take it out of stock and actually permanently install it onto a bike, which therefore does not allow this to be for sale anymore. So obviously there are some sunk costs in creating content like we are here, but this just doubles down on that. So we often do try to partner with our distributions or the brands we sell to at least send us a bit of stuff so we can actually do better demonstrations. So we are hoping to reach out to our Ortlieb distribution to have a video soon. It's a little tricky to showcase. In all honesty, I'll probably have to request a couple cables because to capture the nuance and the amount of angles efficiently on camera will probably take at least a few takes to do it accurately to make it meaningful, good content. But of course, if you have any other feedback or questions, happy to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.